Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to provide an update on my slider set for college football 25. This slider set is by no means the most difficult, but it does provide the most realistic feel and overall stats that I have been able to find. This is our 5th version. It will more than likely be our last unless some groundbreaking gameplay mechanics or updates are introduced over the next few months. If you like what you see here or plan to use these in your game, consider dropping a like and a sub below. It is completely free to you, and we would love to have you be a part of our great community here on YouTube. With that being said, I hope you enjoy, and let's get into it. To preface this, don't be afraid to micro adjust the settings to feel better to you. If a certain aspect is slightly below or above what you think is a good, adjust it up or down in increments of 5 until you find your sweet spot. No slider set will be perfect, but this one is by far the best I have been able to find and come up with. So jumping into things, we want to head to our home page when we load into the game. And from there, we're going to go ahead and navigate over to the settings tab. And then you'll see this game settings selection. Go ahead and hit that and we'll pop into our game settings. And then you'll come to this games option screen. We're going to go ahead and go all the way over to player skill. And this is where we're going to start adjusting our settings. So for the player and CPU skill portions of this, you're definitely going to want to update it on the home screen rather than in your Dynasty, because you'll be able to save here and you'll be able to upload it into any future Dynasties you want. And it'll be a lot easier on you. And you can also micro adjust CPU stuff that you can't in the game, like a special team stuff. You can't specifically adjust special teams for CPU in the Dynasty, so you'll have to do it here if you want to adjust that. But first, we're going to start with player skills, and this is going to be your skills, and it's going to be how difficult it makes the game for you. So for quarterback accuracy, we're going to turn down to 35. All these are going to be set on 50 to start it off, so go ahead and turn this down to 35. This just makes it a little bit more difficult to complete those passes, and it's going to give you a little bit more realistic gameplay in terms of completion percentages and stuff like that. So this is what we want to do here. Pass blocking, we're going to jump to 65. We have had this all the way up to 80 in past versions, but they seem to have fixed the pass blocking a little bit, so we're going to turn this down to 65. Well, I guess we're going to turn it up to 65 from 50, but turn it down from our past versions. If you think it's not good enough or it's too good, go ahead and adjust it, any direction, up 5, down 5. You probably go down a little bit more than that, but we're going to leave it 65 for us. And before I get into any further, this is all on Heisman. So you're going to make this on Heisman and then come back and adjust these settings. Wide receiver catch, we're going to turn to 40. Similar, you want that completion percentage to be a little lower. If you have these on the base 50, you're going to be up into like the 75, 80%. And not every quarterback can do that, especially your smaller school quarterbacks. Run blocking and ball security, we're going to have on 45. So ball security is actually called fumbles in your Dynasty, and it's a little bit confusing. So you want to move this to the left if you are in your Dynasty. Turning fumbles up does not increase fumbles. It's actually ball security. I'm not sure why EA decided to do the name change like that, but the setting is the same. And then run blocking, we're going to turn down to 45. Running is pretty easy in this game in general, so turning it down just to make it a little bit more difficult is better. You probably turn this down all the way to 40, even 35. You want some more difficulty, but we're going to leave ours on 45 for now. Reaction time, so this is one of my biggest gripes with this game. Reaction time for your CPU defense, specifically how I play the game, is I pick one player and I lock on them every possession. So either it's a defensive end, a linebacker, a safety, I stick with them and I don't switch. So my defense is pretty much computer generated, so there's a lot of issues with that. They're really slow in reacting to different stuff. So we turn this up to 75. If you play differently and you user switch and stuff, you may want to turn this down and stuff, but specifically for me, I lock on one player per possession and just run like that. Interceptions, we've all talked about how this game you intercept basically anything that's thrown your way. So we turn that down to 35 for yourself. Pass coverage down to 65. We have had this higher in the past, but I think the pass coverage has gotten a little better as well. So we're going to turn this down to 65. Tackling, we're going to turn up to 60. This will just help with missing those easy tackles and stuff. 60 is a good sweet spot for us. And then for special teams, we'll have 40 for field goal power, 45 for field goal accuracy. Punt power is at 65. We actually had this lower, but we looked at kind of the stats this year, and we were way low. But this gives you about a 55-yard average per punt, so it's pretty good. And then punt accuracy, we're going to have 40, and then kickoff power, we're going to have 52. So this is all your player stats. And what you're going to do is you're going to hit the R3. You'll come in here, and you'll hit the new file, and you'll save your player skills file. I already saved mine as final, so save yours as whatever. And then once you get done with the CPU skills, you head to your Dynasty, and you'll upload it there, and it'll just go ahead and upload everything for you. And now moving on to CPU skills. So we're going to have our quarterback accuracy down to 25. The CPU is insanely good at completing passes. So even with 25, they're still going to be in the low 70s, even sometimes high 70s. And that's just kind of how the game is, and just kind of how the defense operates. So it's really difficult. I didn't want to turn it all the way down to 0. That just doesn't make sense. So 25 is probably the best you can get. Again, you can turn it down to 10. But I don't want it to be too bad where they don't complete any passes. Pass blocking up to 65. I have had this lower in the past, but it seemed like I was getting good rushes off the blocks. And if you're using a very good defensive end that's really fast and has some good badges, pass blocking really isn't going to mean much to you because you're going to be able to get around the edge and just kind of obliterate the quarterback most times anyways. So if you're having a lot of issues with that, I would switch to a worse defensive end, and it'll kind of level itself out because AI isn't as good as shedding blocks. Wide receiver catching, going to have this on 35 similar. You want that completion percentage to be around that 70 mark. You would love to be lower, but the CPU just seems to be very stubborn on not completing passes. It's very difficult. Run blocking, ball security, we're going to have the same as ours, both 45. Reaction time, interceptions, pass coverage, we're going to have 20, 30, and then 20. This is because the Heisman AI defense is just insane. The disparity between your defense, your AI defense, and their AI defense is insane. They're like so much better. So the reaction time and pass coverage are going to be on 20. This will help you out a lot without you actually have passing lanes. They're still going to be very, very good in pass coverage, but you'll be able to at least find one, maybe two guys open down the field on pretty much every possession. Interceptions, we're going to have 30. Again, similar. If you throw it their way at 50, they're just going to pick everything off. 30 is kind of where I found to be the sweet spot. They'll still drop a lot of stuff. They'll still break up a lot of things, but they're not going to pick it off every possession if you make a mistake. That's not realistic, obviously. In the real world, if you threw it to a defender every single time, they would catch it eventually, but we want this to be more realistic stats based, so you don't want to have 6 interceptions per game. That's just not the case. Sometimes it does happen, but it's not every single game. Tackling going to be at 60, so this will help the defense, tackle you on jukes and stuff. You're not going to be able to juke out as many people. You'll still get some here, especially you have really good running backs or wide receivers and stuff, but your lower tier guys are not going to be able to just juke out every single person down the field. And then field goal power is going to be 35. Field goal accuracy is going to be at 45. Punt power is going to be at 65 as well, similar to ours, to give you a little bit more distance, and it'll actually open up some lanes for you to run. Our last setting, it would just punt, and it would just fall right where the defense would meet you, so you basically fair catch every time. This will actually give you 5 to 10 yards to run and try to make some moves. Punt accuracy is going to be at 40, and then kickoff power is going to be at 52. And so from there, you're going to save the CPU setting as well, similar to how you save your setting. And then you'll come in and import custom sliders, hit triangle here. It'll just go ahead and input everything for you. I already did that, so I don't need to do it here. But you can see there's special teams. There's only one selection, and this is for you. So you're not going to be able to change that AI setting if you only change it in the Dynasty. So that's why we had to change it in the background. But for a few things you're going to want to do in the actual Dynasty. The first one, game options. So injuries, fatigue, and minimum player threshold is not going to be in your base settings. I think minimum player threshold might be, but it'll just be easier if you change it here so you don't change your base game if you don't want to play as realistic when you're just playing play now and stuff. So injuries is going to be at 70. This will actually have you have more injuries. I've had guys get injured for full year, 6 months, stuff like that, and you'll just get more injuries and guys will actually come off during the game. 50 and below, it just doesn't, you don't really see that injury. Another thing that will help with this is going to be your fatigue setting. So this is going to be at 80. So these guys are going to be coming in and out all the time. This is really going to help with your running backs and defensive line. Offensive lines is really subbing and sub out like you see in realistic college football. So minimum player threshold is going to be 15. So this is basically the lowest speed that you can obtain. So I think the actual lowest speed in the game is going to be like 40 or something. No player's going to be below that, but you don't want to turn this up because if you turn it all the way to 99, basically the lowest speed you can have is every player is going to be at 99 speed. So it's just going to feel like everybody's the same speed. So we turn this down all the way to 15. Again, I don't think there's going to be any player in the game that has a 15 minimum player threshold, but this will just kind of increase that range they can be. So your 40s are going to feel more like 40s and your 90s are going to feel more like 90s. This will help with your defensive ends, not just being able to catch you down in the open field. If you're in the backfield, they'll still catch you because if you hit the R2 boost, they just get a boost in the game. It doesn't make sense. But in the open field, slow guys aren't going to be able to catch you and stuff like that. And then we're going to go with penalties. This is the second thing we want to do in the Dynasty, because in the game settings on the home screen, you can only increase it in increments of 5. I'm not sure why that is. It's a newer setting because I did change this back in the day, but that's besides the point. So offsides, we're going to have 65. False start, we're going to have 58. Holding, we're going to leave it the same at 50. Face mask, we're going to turn it up by 2 to 52. And then DPI, we're going to have it 65. You're really not going to see that many, penalties still, but this will help just give you a little bit, 3 or 4 per game, which is going to be more similar to how you see in real life. And the rest of these are going to stay on. You're going to have illegal block in the back be 50, and then roughing the passer be 50. Everything else is the same, especially the roughing the kicker. You can turn this back on if you have it off. They have fixed this where you're not going to see it every single time you punt or kick or anything like that. You'll see it every once in a blue moon, but not every single possession like you used to. And you can see here's the Dynasty settings. This is the preference. So obviously skill level, turn yours up to Heisman. I do the slowest on Coach XP's speed settings. And then we do play cooldown of 5, play call limit of 3. You need to be in an online dynasty if you want to use these. Offline dynasties do not have this for some reason. So for quarter win, we went up to 12 minutes. We've talked around between 8 to 12. I think I'm probably going to settle on 10 personally, but if you want more plays per game, you definitely want to turn this up. 12 minutes with 20-minute runoff. You got around 35 to 40 per half, which I think the average for a half is around 50 to 55 in real life. So if you want more like that, just keep turning it up, or turn your minimum play clock time down, or turn it up so you'll have more time each possession you'll be able to run. But if you run a lot of no huddle, these games are going to take forever. So that's why I've always left it around 8 to 10 mark rather than 12. So our second and last thing here is going to be our XP sliders. I haven't personally found a big difference between 100, 90, 60 and stuff like that, but on my last video, a user did come in and said they did a mass look at just kind of overalls in general, and they kind of did different thresholds, and they said turning it down by around 10% is kind of what you want to do. So for all your skill positions and basically all your offense and defense, you're just going to turn them all down 10. I do like keeping the kickers and punters up to 102, because you really only ever see 3-star kickers, and they're not going to be that good overall. So if you turn them down to 90, they're really never going to develop and stuff. So I like to keep it at 102, just to give them a little bit of a boost so you can actually have some decent kickers and kind of get them to develop in your program. And so the one last thing I wanted to cover will be the sign auto subs. You can find this in the team setting on the third thing down. Everything else is going to be in your settings and stuff. For some reason, this one's a little bit different, even though it's kind of a setting feature in a way. But regardless, so these all start at 80 and 70. So your sub in is going to be at 80 and your sub out is going to be at 70. So this is how we kind of did it. Halfbacks, we turned all the way up to 95 and 92. Wide receivers, we turned up to 85 and 72. Similar for fullbacks. And then for offense line, we turned up to 85, but kept them at 6, or we turned them down to 62. This will help out. This will help, players sub in and out like you do see in real life. But for defense, we left these mostly the same. You can probably turn in your, actually we're gonna do that right now. You can turn your defensive lineman up 5. That's what we typically do. I don't know why I didn't save the last time I did this. But then the rest of them, we're gonna kind of leave the same. You can kind of micromanage this however you want. But typically these position players don't sub in as much and out as you would think. Your defensive linemen, your offensive linemen, your skill players do, just because they exert a lot of energy. Obviously for cornerbacks and safeties and stuff, play a lot of pass pro and stuff like that, and then running down the field, obviously you'll sub them in and out. But I think the game does more or less really decent for these. I wouldn't say good, but they do all right for subbing in and out these guys. It's just the linemen, especially the running backs. The running backs is going to be specifically what you want to target here, because if you don't have this, you'll really never see your running back 2. You'll never see your running back 3 unless your running back 1 or 2 gets injured. But so you'll see them more than sometimes you'll even get your running back 3 into games, especially if you're playing 10 to 12 minutes per quarter. And with that, that's the end of the video, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in today. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. But if you want to stick around and watch any of the other videos, there should be one on screen. We have a Dynasty series with SMU going on right now, and there's a bunch of other conference realignment and stuff like that on the channel. So be sure to check those out, and I'll see you all in the next one.